Hello everyone and welcome to another Photo Mishmash, your source for any and all things photography. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 31.
Rumour Roundup.
So let's jump right in and start with the weekend review.
All right.
This week, new image critique or photo critique went out.
Photo critique, that's right. We're trying to be consistent in calling it photo critique. Yes, and...
With that, a new assignment, right?
That's right, a new assignment. But the first thing I want to say is that for you, our loyal followers and watchers and listeners, if you watch that one, the first part of it is a few images that we did several weeks ago. The second part is images we did more recently. And I think it's a glimpse of the direction we're moving for our photo critiques, a little bit more targeted, a little bit more succinct, and we'll talk more about that before your next image critique, which is this Sunday, a regular old one, but really exciting new way to submit images for the photo critiques. And that'll allow us to view them in Lightroom and have a very consistent viewing experience for everybody. So we're excited about that. Stay tuned. The assignment that we gave you in that image critique, there's a post about it. I think it's live. It will be by the time you see this. Natural framing. This is a reader submitted assignment, Todd Davis, and it fits so nicely with the Think Before You Click that I had done 2 weeks ago. And it's basically, we want to see your pictures where you've framed your subject using elements in the composition. And your subject doesn't have to be a person. And one of the examples we used was the nice image from Eduardo, who framed a clock face among some leaves on a tree. But then it could be a human, and use the examples that we had in the Think Before You Click episode. So, that's it. Go out there, shoot. Oh, for the assignment, that is due on, I think, the 19th. That is, no, that's a Friday. The 21st, next week after next Sunday, the 21st. Have your images in. And there'll be a way to submit that as well. Same way, but a new post for you.
Great. And two new gear review videos went out. The first, well, I don't know which one came out first, but one GoPro bag review and one video featuring two new tripods, video tripods from Benro.
That's right. Well, one we're using right now. One is sitting there under camera A, the bigger, the Arrow 4. These are really nice. And, you know, I mentioned this in the video, and I'll just say it again briefly, that we've been making do with the photo tripods for video work.
But these are really nice.
And photo tripods, when you're really trying to do video work, are frustrating.
They really are.
Especially you start to get it situated in the ball head, shoop, goes off in one direction. But somebody asked this, and I just want to point out that photo tripods can be used for, you know, setting up talking head video type stuff. And video tripods can be used for photo, but a big downside to video tripods is that they won't do portrait orientation. You can't drop the ball head over on the side like you can with a photo tripod. So, you got to keep that in mind. But these are nice. Go watch that review if you haven't. I think it's very telling. I get review units from time to time and I send them back. Sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm okay with letting it go because I have something that already fills that place, but I will be buying one of these, probably the bigger one. It suits me very well. It's a great price. It's a great size, really nice features. So I think that sums up my review quite simply.
Yep, great. And the 70D Saga continues. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so keeping you all updated on that. They were supposed to call on Friday. This podcast went out on Friday, and Luke is his name. Luke, you didn't call. He did call on Tuesday. I didn't get around to calling before he did.
He was sick.
He was sick. He was out sick on Friday. He was very apologetic. He connected me over the phone or conference call in with somebody at CPS, courtesy of your CPS membership, which is totally allowed because I work for you anyway. And why he was connecting me, we got disconnected. And I was like, great, thank you. So now what do I do? Well, about 3 minutes later, John from CPS called. Very nice guy, quite apologetic, and promised to make this right. Asked me to do a couple of things, take some sample shots, which I did, wrote up here are the live view shots. Here are the center focus point shots. Here's one above center focus. I mean, the distinction between them is marked. Marked? Is very apparent. So he should have it in his hands right now. He told me to put attention him. He's been there for a long time. I asked him a little bit. I said, you know, why is it's been in? Why hasn't this been fixed? And he said that, you know, in their fairly rigid testing environment confines, that the issue may not show up. And that's true, because it's usually at the shorter focal lengths it doesn't show up. And he promised to look into it deeper. We'll see. I will keep you updated. Should be back next week, and I'm hopeful.
Awesome. And
third time's a charm.
Sure. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the week ahead?
The week ahead, yes. A couple of things are going to come out in the week ahead. One is talking a little bit more about Trigger Trap. They've released their updated dongle. And, you know, I've been having fun with flowering time lapses, as I've been teasing. Some have been successful, some have not. One is still running. It's been running. The GoPro one has been running since Sunday. Now, you know, a week or two ago we talked about longer time lapses with our DSLR and whether or not we really... Are you just nodding your head? Are you really listening?
I'm quasi-listening.
She's quasi-listening. I hope you're listening better. About running your DSLR and taking lots of shots, and how I said, you know, if I want to use it for that, I would. Well, I do have my limits, and if I'm going to be running a time-lapse for weeks, a thing like a GoPro is really nice, because one, I have an easy way to power it through that USB power, and two, it's got an electronic shutter, so there isn't a mechanism there to wear out. But I did wear out the little USB doodad that I was using to power it, apparently. So there's a little bit of a gap a couple days ago in the time lapse. It's still running right now. The flower is still opening up. I thought it would be a little bit faster, but this should be fun to put all together. I'm bummed that kind of some of the most interesting part, where it really started to bloom, seems to have been lost a couple of hours. But the GoPro is still running. I just had to switch out the USB. I'm powering it straight from the wall. I should show a picture of that, or a quick little video. And stay tuned next week, or on Instagram. You can follow both of our Instagrams right down below. I will take what is a 5-6 day time lapse and try to cram it into 15 Instagram-y seconds. So we'll see.
All right.
And I'll be talking about this guy next week too. I've done a quick review of these before, and you know, I hesitate to review things that aren't directly photography related. I feel like it, you know, kind of cheapens what I do to some degree. But when they offered to send along a new one, I thought, you know what? I use this thing almost every day. Well, several times a week. And many of it for photography related. Right now we're charging this with one of these. I power the GoPro on longer time lapses with this. I power our audio system with this. Our recording device. So we'll be talking about this little audio brick. There's a link to it right down below. Just a huge amount of power, days and days and days. Really nice. So, and we'll have the new image critique out next week. And I'm not sure what else.
Great. So let's move on to news.
All right.
Apple released or announced 2 new products this week. And one of them is a completely new product, which we won't really be talking that much about.
There's no camera in it.
But the newest iPhone, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, were announced, and we're excited about them because...
Well, am I excited about them?
Well, excited enough that you want to talk about them.
Okay. Well, I just think it's interesting, you know, as Scott mentioned in a tweet to me, you know, the iPhone 70D, because one of the features that is now in the new camera is phase detection in the pixels. Very similar to the dual pixel autofocus that the 70D offers. That's going to allow for snappier, more consistent autofocusing. And that's one place where, you know, your smartphones have lagged a little bit from your DSLRs, or I should say, you know, noticeably when you're trying to take pictures of your kids. I have to say in the last couple of years that they haven't been bad. But so it should be even better now. And the 6 Plus offers optical stabilization, not just electronic. Optical is almost always better. It's actually the lens mechanism itself with those little gyroscopes are moving and counteracting your shakiness. So We should see some more stable video, even better than hyperlapse stability from that, and less blurry pictures in lower light. Always good. These suckers are pricey though, especially if you want to buy them off contract. Very pricey. But
They are.
But nice. And it's kind of a bummer there's no 32 gigabyte model. You got to go 16 or jump
Yes.
up to the big 64.
Yeah. And I found with my iPhone 5S that 16 gigs is really not enough. It's
Yes,
very limited.
as we discussed. And as you have stingily disallowed hyperlapse to be installed. But I'm working on her, folks. We had somebody said they shaved their head.
Yep.
Now, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but it looked like your head was pretty close to being shaved already. Maybe that's the joke. If it is, that's pretty funny. But,
Hilarious.
you know, we are going to Italy with David McKay and that photo group. We're going to be driving along the Amalfi Coast, which you've probably seen it in commercials before. It's very similar to the California's coastal highway. It is this highway that snakes along the cliffs right above the Mediterranean. Gorgeous, jaw-dropping scenery. And I think
Awesome food.
well, not on the highway itself probably, but
Close enough.
yes, you'll be able to smell the pizza in the air. I think that's a perfect place for a hyperlapse as we're driving along that road.
It's too bad they don't have it for Android.
Bring along the suction cup mount and my cell phone holder and ask the bus driver to right on the front of the lens of the windshield of the bus. Hyperlapse. Do it for the good of this channel. So stingy. Okay, what's next?
So finally, well, not really finally, but rumors, quasi-confirmed rumors about the 7D Mark II. I can't wait to not hear any more about it and to hear exactly what it's going to be like, because this rumor stuff just drives me crazy.
It is, you know, it's a little much, but then I put up the post and the attention it gets and the interest you all have in it is high. And so I don't mind talking about it, but it can wear you out, especially if you're already not that interested in rumors and specs. You just want to go take pictures. There's been a couple comments. First off, all right, well let's run through them. Do you have the specs there?
Yes.
Okay.
So it has a rugged magnesium alloy body, which it's no surprise. Lots of those cameras have it. The last 70
Yes.
have
Well,
it.
it's certain. So that's a good sign. It's continuing that tank-like line. Digital Rev has a video where you remember watching this? It was a while ago, where they like freeze the 7D. They throw it down some steps.
Don't remember
They
that.
light it on fire. It keeps working. It's a tank. We both owned them for a while, and
Switched to full frame sensors.
switched to full-frame sensors.
We started shooting weddings.
Yeah. But anyway, it's built like a tank. Now, the rumor is there's no Wi-Fi in it, and the reason is because of this magnesium alloy body, you're not going to get a good signal out of it. I feel like, really? Couldn't you engineer a little antenna that slipped up between the plastic and the magnesium somewhere?
Apparently not.
Well,
Anyway,
okay. Other specs?
dust proof. It has the same sensor as the 70D
Why do you say that?
because it has dual pixel technology,
Yeah.
and it's a 20.2 megapixel.
Which is the
CMOS
same as the
sensor.
70D.
Right.
Right. But we don't know for sure that it is the identical chip.
Okay. Right. And these are just, again, rumors.
I'll say that. And somebody in one of the comments, I think it was from William, Stone Warrior, said, you know, let's hold off on really passing any judgment because these are rumors. Yes, I agree, but I have to say that at this point, when we're this close to releases, the rumors are almost always spot on. It has been very, very rare that there's any big surprises or big differences from what's listed here.
Okay.
So I think we can safely say this is what this camera's going to be like.
All right. I think, I'm not going to go through all of them because I think that they can just come and look at the blog post.
Yep.
But
We'll put a link
will
to that
say
right down below.
that the most exciting thing about it, or, one of the biggest, newest things about this camera is not just the dual pixel sensor, but it has 65 AF focus points, which means, just to reiterate what he was saying just a minute ago, that this camera is built for speed, it's built for accurate focus, so it's going to be, as we've been saying, probably a very popular camera among sports photographers, wildlife photographers, people who are looking for speed.
Yeah. I said that during our breakfast conversation. I didn't say that on this podcast yet.
I'm pretty sure you said it like last episode or something.
Okay. Yes. And so, there are a lot of people that are looking over these specs and are not terribly excited. That might, or underwhelmed is a statement, especially when they see that it's likely or possibly the same sensor as the 70D. Not because the 70D is a bad sensor, as we talked about, but because that's the sensor that is now basically a year old. And here is a new camera using a year-old sensor. And Canon has kind of been doing this in the last couple of iterations of different cameras, reusing the same sensor. But let's set aside that sensor for a second and talk the 65 AF points. Not only that, but this is borrowing heavily from the autofocus system of the 1DX, which I said last time, so I'm going to say briefly again, is an amazing focus machine. Serious accuracy and high speed rate. So there are people, I have seen people who are excited about this system, and even ones that are excited and say, I don't care if it's the same sensor as the 70D. This is going to be amazing for tracking sports, birds in flight, so they're happy. But there's the rest of us normal folks that if we're not shooting those things, then the camera does feel a little underwhelming with no Wi-Fi, possibly no touchscreen, and video functions that are up to date, but not a step forward.
Right, but I think there are points for the body and for having that sort of, like tanks feeling camera that you don't really have to worry that much about bringing anywhere, and that has, all of the features of the 70D plus, that amazing focusing system. And, like, I will say that when the 5D Mark III came out, the sensor isn't all that different from the 5D Mark II, but all I really wanted was a new focusing system, and that's what put me over the edge to want to get another one, or to want to get that camera over another 5D Mark II. I think that's enough to push some people over the edge. That focusing system, a really good focusing system, is kind of huge. I think that's really important, and that's really worthwhile.
Yep.
So, yeah, I will say, like we were talking at breakfast about the sensor itself, that it is kind of a bummer that, the sensor is already a year old. So by the time, if this is true, by the time the next 70 comes out, it's going to be probably like, 5-6 years old. Just thinking about the future of these cameras and how long or how old the sensor will be. But
Right.
but also, like we've had this discussion before, that the whole sensor, the sensor quality is good enough that, like, unless you're pixel peeping, it just does the job, and it's not really, something like really that worthwhile to talk about.
Yeah.
Unless it has like amazing dynamic range or, something like that. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Two last points I want to make about it. One is, it's very interesting to me that if it doesn't have a touch screen, the 70D really sold its dual pixel focus technology in movie mode by saying touch to focus and create these cinematic focus pulls. And they had that video of the chefs in the kitchen chopping stuff, and then focused in the background on somebody putting stuff into the wok. And if they don't have that dual pixel technology, or say they don't have a touch screen, how exactly do you take advantage of those touch to focus points? I'm curious to see that. And the other point, I lost it. I don't remember what it was. So just one.
Great. So let's move on to two new lenses, the 24
Yes.
crop sensor lens from Canon and the 24-105 STM. They are both real, folks.
They're both real. and they're coming. And the 24 EF-S lens, I thought I had a picture of it here. I will pull up a picture right now. It looks identical to the 40mm EF-S lens. I mean, it really just looks exactly the same. And there's a picture of it on Canon Rumors. And I expect that the price to be very similar, $149, $199. And
I would say jump on it. It's a nice.
Why would you
focal
say
length.
that?
Well, because it's the equivalent of like a 35mm focal length, which is a really nice focal, like just general focal length for walking around, and you can get pretty close to stuff because of the, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't really know, but the focusing distance, I'm assuming because it's wider, is a lot smaller. So, yeah, so you can magnify a little bit more than you would with like a 40 or a 50. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
It's got a 0.16 meter minimum focus distance. The 40 is 0.3.
So.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
That's great.
Really nice. This lens and the SL1, they are a match made in heaven. It's a really nice small walk around that suits the SL1 very well. So was the 42 for a little bit more reach, a little bit more portrait orientation. But this is a great versatile walk around lens. I would say jump on it. I believe the image quality is going to be excellent, very similar to the 40 was. Sure, it'd be nice if it would be a little bit faster, f2, f1.8, but you know you're going to get it for $149 to $199. It's a really good price. Metal build quality. Yep, STM technology, so you can do. Probably won't be silent because the 40 isn't completely silent, but close enough.
Great, and a 24 to 105 STM
24 to 105 as well. You know what? I was a little skeptical about. Sorry, I lost my place. There it is. About this lens because there's so much overlap with the 18 to 135, 18 to 135, but it's coming, and I'll be curious to see how its image quality compares to the old Canon full frame 24 to 105, which
that's an L lens.
That is an L lens, but it's not their best L lens, and it's
pretty sharp.
I disagree.
Really?
Yep. We ran those tests. We did the 24 to 105 versus the 24 to 70 versus the 24. It's not a bad lens.
I think you're thinking of the old 24 to 70. The old 24 to 70 was not that sharp. And then the new 24 to 70 came out. But the 24 to 105 was pretty solid. It's definitely not as sharp as the 24 to 70, the new 24 to 70. But it was sharper, at least as sharp, I think sharper than the 24 to 70. We'll have to go back to those videos and look.
We'll have to.
For sure.
But, all right, it's not their best value L lens, and Sigma's 24 to 105 is much sharper. This is probably going to be on par with that, maybe a little bit sharper, despite what Christina thinks, and but doesn't offer a constant aperture. But it does offer STM. Why so much overlap? And why an EF STM lens? Well, there is the C100, C300 folks that can take advantage of this. They have APS-H sized sensors, so that's a little bit larger, less crop factor. Who else? Well, maybe the 5D Mark IV, whenever we hear about it.
Do you think a price point would be a reason why they're releasing this? Because, you know, somebody who has an entry-level camera who's not a pro might lean more towards this than the 24 to 1. But then again, you know, the 18 to 135 still.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know what the quality comparison is. Yep. Because it is a shorter range. So, I mean, I would...
Shorter ranges, what is...
Better quality, slightly better,
usually,
but marginally.
The less you cram into a lens, usually the higher the quality, or less distortion at the either ends. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
All right.
I don't have much more to say about that. I'm excited about the 24. I wish it was EF, but all right.
So, moving on, no T6i has been announced. Will be announced at Photokina. Maybe at the Photo Plus Expo at the end of October.
Yep.
We will know
that's
for
the
sure
next
then.
big photo show that happens, and so there have been announcements at that in the past. So the SL2, the T6i.
It seems a little bit overkill. I mean, they've been releasing yearly for the last, 3 or 4 years, a new camera since they released the T1i even every year. And how much further can they get?
Oh, I hope they can get further.
Yeah, but
Wi-Fi. I want my Wi-Fi in my cameras. So I like the iFi cards, but I'd like it even more if I didn't.
T6i? You would care about the Wi-Fi in the T6i?
It would bring it up to par with Nikon. If Canon wants to stay current in the entry-level DSLR market, they have to.
Okay.
And that's the release schedule for those entry-level DSLRs.
Right, but what I'm saying is that there's probably not enough updates. Like, it would just be a T5i with a new name.
Well, that was what the T5i was for the T4i.
Right, and so I'm saying that they probably not found enough things to update to create a new. Or maybe they'll announce a new one. Maybe we'll...
Put your wish list below of what you want in the T6i. Wi-Fi, dual pixel autofocus from the 70D. That was we've had that discussion in the past, but let's revisit it. Whether or not they would include that, because then that's why do you get the 70D if the T6i offers that? But I think they will. I think they will. Well, I don't. T7i maybe. T6i. They do. They eke. And the 7D Mark II is a great example of this. Canon ekes out small iterations as they move forward. And I mean, they're trying to make money. We're trying to all be happy, and there's a lot of us, and we're always grumpy no matter what. Gosh, you go read the forums. There are so many grumpy people about everything.
There's grumpy people everywhere.
That's true. Grumpy people. Grumpy cats, too, I hear. He's got a movie now. Grumpy cats. Okay, what's next?
So the D750 from Nikon was announced recently.
Yes, that's right.
You have lots of opinions and thoughts on that.
This is another example of rumors and pictures that were out a few days before. Nailed it, no discrepancies. And so that's why I feel fairly confident in saying that the rumors that we're talking about with the 7D Mark II are going to be accurate as well. Full frame camera. And we're gonna have a brief discussion in this podcast today about the directions Canon and Nikon are heading. And I'm sorry for anybody who say, why are you talking about Sony or Pentax? But, these guys are still the big ones, and we are most familiar with them, so we talk about the most familiar. I'm sure there's a podcast out there devoted to Sony. But Nikon's got another full-frame camera. They've got a lot of full-frame cameras now. So this is the D750. They've got the D610. They've got the D800, the D4, the D4S, the D3DX. It's a crowded full-frame market. It's interesting that the Nikon's slipping another one in there. A couple things that really stand out to me. Well, one, it's full-frame. I like that. It's got a tilty screen. I like that. It's got Wi-Fi. I like that. It doesn't have the construction the 7D Mark II has. We're not comparing these necessarily, but I'll point out that here's an example of maybe why Wi-Fi was easy to put in. It's got the carbon monoQ, is that how you say that? Body. It's plastic polycarbonate type material. No solid magnesium alloy like the 7D Mark II. And the Nikon D800 does have that magnesium alloy body and doesn't have Wi-Fi. So maybe, come on, can't you engineers figure out how to get Wi-Fi somehow in there?
What's the equivalent of the 6D, the Nikon equivalent of the 6D?
The D600 or 610 now.
All right.
Yeah. This is a step above that probably. And
in what way?
You got 24 megapixels. You've got 6.5 frames a second. That's, a step up from the 6D, and the 6D is like 3, and the D600. I actually don't know what the Nikon D600 frame rate is. Full 1080p, 60 frames a second. And 2200 body only. That's a nice price. Now, your focus system is, again, all right, if we're comparing this to 7D Mark II, which we shouldn't because crop sensor full frame, but I think right now people are saying, I'm kind of Canon shooters saying, I'm not really excited about 7D Mark II, as I said, many are, and they look over at Nikon, here's this full frame that might be only a little bit more, but it's a much slower camera, much less robust focusing system, but it's probably going to do quite nicely in low light. It's going to be a nice low light machine. I think wedding photographers, a capable enough focusing system, dual SD card slots. 7D Mark II sounds like we're going to get one SD card slot, or one CF card slot. Oh, no, I think it said one CF, one SD.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would be shocked if it didn't have
Well, the
both.
7D was just one CF, right?
Yes, but that was before.
Before SDs really got popular.
Or
in
before
professional.
that they started building the two SD and CF slot cards
Yeah.
as like a standard.
But we're talking about the Nikon. Sorry, tilty screen. Did I say that? So some nice, some nice features. I think it's going to sell well for Nikon, and I don't know what else to say about it. Oh, it's shipping with their 24 to 105, which is very similar to the lens we were talking about a few minutes ago. F4 constant lens. That adds a good bit to the price. I think that lens must be about $1,200 because the kit of them together is $3,400, $3,200.
So I think we should really
32.
start to speed through these. We've already talked for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And we have lots of questions and a lot more to talk about. So
All right.
very briefly, 220mm 1.8 and a new Nikon Flash with LED.
Yes. So very briefly,
You can look at all of those. There is, he's done a nice write-up on the website, on the blog. So if you want to read more about these in detail, go to the website.
Yep. So Nikon 20mm f1.8. This is a fairly high-end lens. It's going to sell for about $800. Good. Looks good. Nice, wide. 20mm on a full-frame camera. It's pretty wide. It's good landscape if you want. SB500 Flash has LEDs and is firmware updatable too, which I thought interesting. I don't even think our 600 RTs are firmware updatable.
We don't know for sure.
I researched this morning on Canon's website.
Oh, did you?
Man,
Well,
there's no.
Sounds like you're pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure. So the 500s, they're calling it a multimedia flash because it's got a little row of LEDs for doing some video work, which is very similar to Canon's flash they've had out for a long time, the 320EX. So we'll see, and they're cheap. They're $2 something. I think you're better off getting a Yongnuo flash and a $30 LED panel. I mean, we still use. Excuse my reach. We still use this. I still use this quite frequently, $30. It's going to throw a huge amount of light compared to the little LEDs on this flash.
That is correct.
But if you really wanted to just carry around one thing, okay.
Yep.
Oh, you know what else I want to say about this is, we're going to be talking about trigger trap in the week ahead. A lot of people say, I like the idea of trigger trap, but it burns through my phone's battery pretty quick. Here's your answer right here. Okay.
So Fuji X100T.
Yes.
Was announced.
Yeah. The X100 was one of those first kind of fixed focal length, really big sensor for its size of the camera. And then there was the X100S, now we got the X100T, not to be confused with the XT, and because there's 100 in it. It's got a fixed lens, 23 millimeters, I believe, is the lens f1.8. Let me pull up that page. This is body only. No, not because it's got a fixed lens. 23 millimeter f2, $1,299. It's got an aps-c size sensor in it, basically the same thing that it shares with the Fuji XT1. So a really nice sensor, but you got a fixed lens. We talk from time to time about getting a better travel camera, lighter camera. Is this something that's interesting to you?
I don't think so. I think if I were to get one, I would get one with one that allows me to use different focal lengths and different lenses. I don't think I would get one of the fixed focal length ones. But it's a niche camera, so I can totally see it selling fairly well. And it, $12.99 with a lens, that doesn't seem that outrageous to me, especially since it was just announced. So price is probably only going to go down from here, or most definitely. And they already have a fixed focal length camera, and that's a pretty good seller too, right?
Yes. The X100 and the X100S were very good sellers, or are still. But it's starting to become a very crowded marketplace, especially at this price point, and you have a number of options that have interchangeable lens systems. As you said, you would more likely. I feel like that is starting to get to be a steep price. So I'm just not that interested.
It's good for street photography.
Yep. One thing, it's got an electronic, is this the one? Yeah. Electronic shutter. It can, in addition to a mechanical shutter, and has electronic shutter, which is basically the equivalent of turning the sensor on and off, which allows it to get incredibly fast shutter speeds, 1/32,000th of a second.
That's crazy.
Whew. You know, our DSLR's maximum is 1/8,000th of a second.
That would be cool to use. What's the maximum aperture on the lens? That's
f2.
Yeah, you
can shoot wide.
Awesome,
you can shoot wide
shallow
open
depth of field
in
sunlight,
yeah,
in, like,
on the
bright
surface
sun.
of the sun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh well.
I think. Let's go try it. Field trip. All right.
Cool. So another bit of
that'll be available
sort
in
of
November.
Fun
If you want to get
news.
us a Christmas present, it's okay. How do we get to that?
This crazy Android stylus is a real-life Photoshop eyedropper tool.
It is.
I think
if I can
it's
press that play button.
pretty gimmicky, but
It is a little bit gimmicky, but I thought this was neat and kind of fun. It's a little kind of Bluetooth stylus that you hold over different colors, and it. I'll put the little video in here because it doesn't seem to be playing right. It picks that color out of whatever you're holding it, and then you can draw with it on a tablet. Android, available for Android, not iOS.
great. So you won't nag me about installing the app.
Well, we'd have to buy the thing first.
And then how accurate is it?
That's a great question.
Because it just seems like it's
Yep.
just like, oh, that's yellow, yellow.
Well, we don't know. We have to. It's a Kickstarter. $64. You can back it. Why don't you try it out and let us know?
But it's for Android.
I'll lend you my Android tablet if you buy the stylus.
I'll pass.
Okay.
But thanks.
You know what we skipped over really quickly, though, we'll go back, is that Sigma announced, just because I wanted to make this really great joke I've been saving. Sigma announced 2 new 150 to 600 lenses, so very similar to the Tamron, which is getting pretty good reviews, and is my recommendation for a really long focal length on a serious budget. 2 lenses, 150 to 600. Why 2? Here's why. I wanted you to say why.
I don't know why.
One is a sports version where there is absolutely no compromise to optical image quality. The other is a contemporary version where they sacrifice, they don't say this, but
Contemporary?
yeah, the contemporary is the line, kind of the line of Sigma's
And what is that?
newer things. That is more for portrait work or studio work. It's a very long lens to use in a studio, but and that gives you a slightly more portable lens and probably a little bit lighter versus the sport is a honkin' beast. So my joke was sporty spice and posh spice. Sporty Sigma. It sounds so stupid now. Never mind.
Let's move on.
All right. What are we moving on to?
Huge SD card.
Wow.
How huge?
512 gigabytes.
I'm sorry, I can't get over your failed joke from just a minute ago.
Okay. 512 gigabytes. As one poster commented on this on Facebook, that would be a terrible thing to lose. And
It would suck.
the next person replied to that, reason for suicide. Ooh, that's a little harsh.
That's a little much.
But it is certainly, we talk about keeping all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, why would you do that? Why would just
But the fact to be able to have
Continue to
512
fill up.
on that little SD card, it's pretty snazzy. I will say though, this reminds me that we should say it's available for pre-order.
Yeah, and it's for the cheap and affordable price of $729.
Question for you all, what would you rather spend $729 on than a 512 gigabyte SD card? So, I want to hear what you say. And as some of you pointed out, in a few years, it's going to seem like child's play. Might be more than a few years. It's
a little more than a few years.
Big size, but who would need that size? So, you know, every once in a while things come out and everybody was like, that's ridiculous. But I imagine somebody with a GH4, a solar charger, and a lot of batteries heading out for a multi-week expedition. But see, you'd be better off just bringing a backup. Well, you could shoot onto it. So somebody's going to go out and shoot a lot of 4K video out in the field for a long period of time.
Yeah, there you go.
You could make an argument for it.
There you go. Yeah.
Beyond that, it's hard to, other than to say I'm so rich that...
Well...
oh, you know what we haven't talked about, speaking of I'm so rich, is the Zeiss 85 f1.4 for $4,500 lens. Incredibly sharp, manual focus only. If you've got the money and you've got the time to manual focus, get it.
Do it.
But I did want to talk about more reasonable. I think P&Y is becoming my recommendation for SD cards now. They're 64 gigabyte. I've been using that 32. Really reliable. They're getting really good reviews. They're 64 gigabyte fast card, 90 megabytes a second, $33 on B&H. And I do, having a 64, it's nice. We use 64 CFs for our wedding. Can shoot almost a whole wedding, usually on one card each of us. And have backup cards as well. So that's how we avoid keeping all of our eggs in one basket, but it's nice.
Yep.
It's nice not to have to worry about switching cards.
Great. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's all the news that we had for today. And that was a lot.
That was a lot of news.
It was like 45 minutes of it.
So it's that time of year.
So we're going to move on to a new segment, which is actually not a new segment. But
we're just skipped our discussion.
Oh, right. Well, if we discuss this too much, we might not have time for reader questions.
Discussion. Here's what I want to put out there that I think is interesting. I've noticed, and I've seen other people comment on this. Canon is releasing, or has in the last year, a pile of good aps-c sized lenses. The 10 to 18, very good quality. All of these STM lenses, they're very good quality. They are a serious step above kit lenses in the past, and they're for aps-c sized sensors. I just saw the FedEx truck.
Outside?
Yep.
All right, go get it.
Be right back. Let's do the snap finger things. So, before FedEx interrupted, which actually they didn't even deliver anything. They have like 4 different trucks, and I'm waiting for something that has to be signed for.
We hate FedEx.
We dislike FedEx. Sorry if you work for FedEx, but they don't seem to have their... Anyway, comment down below, FedEx or UPS. We love UPS. They come at the same time, one truck. Right now, FedEx delivers in a Penske rental truck with a little label under the door that says FedEx Ground.
And there's like, we've had like 2 or 3 different trucks from FedEx deliver different things throughout one day. Yeah. So it's strange.
They don't seem the most efficient. I understand they have ground and they have air. This just turned into the...
Why don't you tell us how you really feel about FedEx? All
right, let's talk about USPS tracking.
Oh boy, let's not go there.
So I was saying that we've got a bunch of really nice aps-c lenses. The STMs, these new ones coming out, and it is clear, where I believe it's, you know, an indication that Canon is saying, we love our crop sensor people, we're making cameras, here are good lenses for them. Nikon has just a packed lineup, as I said, of full frame cameras. It seems clear that they want people to go in that direction. Their recent lenses have been much more full frame focused, the 20mm and other ones. And so it'll be interesting to see if these two companies go in fairly different directions. Nikon saying, here's your entry-level full frame camera and trying to get the prices way down. And Canon will say, here's your aps-c size camera and keeping the prices down.
Yeah. It is really interesting because as of right now, whenever somebody asks me, so why do you shoot Canon over Nikon? I don't really have a straight answer because that's just what I ended up with.
That's what you started with.
Or that's just what I started with. And so you start to purchase lenses and then it's like, well, Nikon has pretty much the same offerings and very similar quality. So it's really just kind of arbitrary preference. Right. There's not any particular reason. So it would be a good idea for these two companies to sort of differentiate in some way from one another. But I just don't understand the whole like full frame versus aps-c. I mean, they're different. They're different types of sensors. I don't see that as a differentiation point for these two cameras, or these two manufacturers. I guess in terms of the aps-c, it's a way to reach a wider audience because you can offer more competitive prices and still offer great quality. And I think you can make the argument that it's much more, or it's much cheaper to sort of improve these sensors and introduce new technologies at this size sensors and make it available to a wider range of people versus like full frame sensors.
Right. And
go ahead.
And maybe that's why Nikon has farmed their sensor operation out to Sony. So that, you know, that's a separate organization, well, a company doing that. And so they can then afford to make more full frame, whereas Canon has kept all of their sensor technologies in-house. That also might be why they're lagging a little bit. Or feeling like they're lagging a little bit in sensor technology and other things too.
I just feel like, you know, unless there are clear-cut, very specific differences between like the 600, the D610, the D750, the D800, unless there are really, really, really specific differences besides price point, I feel like that's just going to create confusion for people because they're looking at these full frame cameras and they're like, you know, like say you're a hobbyist and you want to get a full frame camera because you just want the look of a full frame camera or what have you, which is, you know, a pretty popular reason to get it. For me, it was. I mean, it just has a different look. Your depth of field is a little bit more obvious or narrower. It feels narrower at the different apertures. But anyway, so... And you're looking at these options and you're just like, well, you know, they're not that different and the prices are all kind of, you know, they're a little different, but they're similar. So which one, like, does price relate to quality? And I don't think that's necessarily true all the time. So I think they could do it in a way that's helpful, and I think that it could also create a lot of confusion. So, and, you know, just a disclaimer, I don't know a whole lot about each one of these cameras that I've just mentioned, so I should probably read and see what the differences are, and then probably make a more informed statement about why somebody might choose either one.
Right. Well, megapixels is a big differentiation. I mean, D800 offers 36 megapixels.
That's very true. Yeah.
But, you know, I think in some ways it's similar to, and sorry if I'm, you know, putting you on the spot with this, but similar to how you set your packages for weddings, where you've got 3 different kind of packages to choose from, and you've designed them in such a way that you want most people to choose the middle package. And so do you think Nikon's doing that same thing? Here's a bunch of cameras. We'll make this one kind of good, this one kind of offers this, but most of you, we're gonna push you past that first one and get you on the second, and you know?
It's a possibility, but I feel like with products, although, you know, there is this technique is called anchoring, or, you know, it's not actually called anchoring, but it's possible, but at the same time, I feel like they are manufacturing, if they want, like for me, as, you know, my packages, I don't actually like pre-purchase things before I list them. Like I give people these offerings and then once they choose it, if they choose whatever is in it, then that's when I produce the product and, you know, deliver the service. But for them, they're gonna actually manufacture all of these cameras. So if they're trying to lead somebody to the middle, then, you know, it would seem like they're sort of, I don't want to say like wasting, but it just seems a little bit excessive to produce other cameras that they hope people. So I don't think that's necessarily
I could be wrong.
the reason.
I just wondered.
You know, I think, you know, companies definitely do this. So I wonder if they're gonna halt production, or it's not going to produce. They're not going to produce as much of the 610. D610, and they're going to produce a lot more of the D750. So yeah, I mean, we should probably revisit this and talk more about it.
We should.
And
Right.
I would like to know
I
more
do plan
about
on
this
getting a 750 in here for a review.
Great.
And you know, I'm excited. It looks on paper, it looks like a nice camera. But again, just want to point out to folks, and you know, I'm mostly followed by Canon folks. There's a comment from Pete. Pete, you didn't leave a thing, so I couldn't respond to your feedback. that said, you know, you guys talk so much about Canon, you should survey your audience. Well, based on the questions I get, I know that most of my audience, and I have surveyed you all before, own Canon. I know some of you know Nikon definitely, and Sony, and Micro Four Thirds. But anyway, but I want you Canon folks to know who are looking at the 7D Mark II specs right now and saying, I'm a little underwhelmed, that there are plenty of people over on Nikon that are saying similar things about the 750. So you always get these, well, the grass is greener on the other side, but it might not always be. And we both got into photography about the same time, and Canon had a clear lead in the entry-level DSLR market.
It's true, yeah.
A step above in several different ways. And I still lean towards Canon a lot of the time for beginners because of that really nice live view exposure simulation. That makes learning with your camera a much easier thing to do. And Nikon has, not provided that. And so the kind of like teaching you how to take good pictures, Nikon doesn't do as well. They might be producing better sensors right now, but we're talking about at a level, again, where if you put a Canon in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing and a Nikon in the hands of somebody who doesn't, they're not such a difference that the person who doesn't know what they're doing is going to be producing better pictures. It's not night and day. It's noticeable, but it's not night and day. That's a good spot to stop and move on to the what section.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is, Pete also said we go on too long. Pete, you don't have to watch. But we had a question, I think 2 weeks ago now from John. And I said, John, it's a good question. I want to get back to it. Be honest, it's not a great question, but it's a valid one because John has got concerns he's hearing from people. I think he's younger. I think he's in maybe college or just out of high school. You didn't say John, so I'm not sure. You want to read it or you want me to read it?
You read it.
Okay. I've got a question for you as a photographer. Someday, if God willing, that I'm planning to take a bachelor's degree in photography after I graduate from my Bachelor's of Arts in Digital Filmmaking that I'm taking right now. Because I'm into photography right now. Okay. A lot of people telling me that there's no future in photography, or I won't get rich if I become a photographer. It won't be enough to feed my family. Some parents said that to me, which is kind of offending if you're a photographer. Yeah, a little bit. Unless I take other courses like animations, doctors, etc. All right, hold on, John. Animation and doctors is a big difference because I'm pretty sure you can get a degree in animations in about 2 years. Doctor takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I would like to know a photographer's statement. Okay. Do you want to start answering or do you want me to start?
I'll start answering.
Okay.
So
let's keep it brief. I know how you like to go on and on sometimes, though.
Oh, yeah, I like to go on and on. All right. Well, this is a big question, and I hesitate to say what I think as advice because I don't know. I don't feel like I have the last word. But okay, photographer's opinion.
Can I say where I think this question is coming from? 2 places.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Did I forget one again? I should always say. Can I say? Okay. One is, the fact that it's. All right. Got it. It's a very crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
I get questions every day from somebody who says, I want to buy a camera because I want to start taking pictures for money. Every day I get that question. And that's one reason. It's a very crowded marketplace. Those people stepping in offer rock bottom prices and saturate the market. The second reason is that maybe people are thinking about this is that in the future, is photography going to be less of a thing and video is going to be more of a thing? And, photography will be like old and who cares about pictures? I just want video. That's the 2 reasons where I think this might be coming, this perception.
Well, I don't think photography is...
I'm not saying either are correct or either is something that people should worry about.
Right. I don't think photography is ever going to be obsolete. I'm just going to say that, and I know that's outrageous because I can't predict the future. But, people don't hang up video of their family, up on their walls.
You don't think we'll have little micro view screens that are little...
We've tried that. We've tried that with those, digital frames that rotate pictures. It's just not the same. You know, I could be wrong. There could be some like revolutionary, unique like type of video that we will want to put up on the wall. But I think photographs are going to be long lasting. They are not going to be completely replaced. At least, you know, I'm thinking from like the lifestyle sort of, you know, portrait and wedding photography type thing. In advertising, it's a lot different. I think videos are really powerful in advertising. But I think photos are also, you know, like catalogs are still a huge thing, you know, like physical catalogs. And I think photography is here to stay for a while, at least. So I think, you know, I think that you might be into photography right now, but you shouldn't just like jump from one degree to another, especially since they're in the fine, you know, sort of arts just field. You know, I think that you should probably think about taking some courses that are a little bit cheaper before you jump into getting an entire degree of photography, you know, like a bachelor's in photography. Maybe you could consider getting a master's in photography. That could be a possibility. I don't know.
Instead of two bachelors.
Right, yeah, instead of two bachelors. But I think that you should sort of get your toes wet first. And like, for example, there's Creative Live, creativelive.com. They have tons of great classes of different types of photography. They're only like $99, maybe $199 for some of the longer courses. And you could buy that. It's like way less than a $1,200, $1,500 college course times, you know, like 4 others for each semester. There's a Define school that also has nice, cool courses about storytelling, styling, from people who are in the field. So that hopefully answers the first part of the question, that I don't think you should jump into photography straight away unless you're totally sure. And I'm not convinced that you really necessarily need to get a bachelor's degree in photography. Yeah. I think you probably want to get more of a master's, if, you know, at all.
Or just work on practical experience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, you know, steer somebody away from school, because I think formal education can be a really good thing, but it can also be really expensive. So you really have to think about and weigh whether or not it's worth it for you to actually go on and do it. So, you know, cost-benefit analysis, you should really think about that. And for the second part of the question, I think that there is a future in photography. I think that people who tell you there isn't are totally wrong. You might not get rich from being a photographer. That's just telling you probably won't get rich from being a photographer. But is that really your goal? You know, is that your goal in life, to become rich? Because if that is your goal in life, you probably won't get rich, you know. And I could be wrong. There's always outliers. But, you know, doing digital filmmaking, you know, that's, unless you plan to go into movies and like break out, become a big film director or whatever. I know I'm already going on for too long. But, you know, it will definitely be enough to feed a family. You know, I do wedding photography, and I don't think that I'm not rich, but, you know, I make a good income that, you know, if I could have a family, it could be a realistic way to sustain a family. So that's totally not true. I mean, I think you could totally sustain a family and a photographer's. Yeah. But you have to work hard. And I think that's with every career that you go into. You just have to, if you go into photography, you have to go 100% and work your butt off. Like, you can't just, like, the work's not just going to come to you. People aren't just going to reach out to you and say, hey, photograph me. You have to be good. So you have to have a really good eye. You know, you have to have talent. And
that's something formal schooling can help with.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
developing your eye.
Right, and that's something that you can definitely accomplish. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you still have to work hard no matter what you do. So I think if that's really your passion, you really want to do it, then do it. But you have to commit. Yep. So
it's a very visual world. There's always going to be a demand for photo and video, and having a background in both is certainly something that I think is a strength.
Yeah, but and I think video is great.
Christina summed it up in saying you're going to have to work hard, but that's true of anything where you want to make money enough to provide for your family, unless you get lucky. And we're not going to talk about luck because that's just people getting lucky.
You can't teach luck.
Can't teach luck.
All right.
You teach card counting, though.
Okay, we will not go there. So let's move on to some more reader questions.
Okay.
Should I start with Angela's?
Yeah, you should.
All right. Angela wants to know which cart? Which cat is more of a troublemaker?
I'd like to run them over with a cart.
That is horrible.
Just kidding. Well, Angela, I'll tell you this. While we were setting up for the podcast, both animals were on the table at various points in time.
Just Bean.
Liam was up first.
No, he wasn't. Not while I was here, anyway.
His butt was sitting on this, don't you remember?
No, I don't.
Right when we were setting up. Oh my gosh. Look,
Okay.
there was no tape rolling at the... Well, there's never any tape rolling.
All right.
The cameras weren't rolling at the time.
So which cat's more of a troublemaker, Liam or Bean?
Equally.
They're about equal.
Yeah.
And they're about equally adorable and cuddly also. So...
Yeah. Lacey, I think we covered the 7D Mark II info.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we'll see.
Speaking of troublemaking.
Well, they can't hear that, but there's just some scrabbling as Bean is now down at our feet. Where to go? Oh, Paul. Paul wants to know about the new, it's not the XT1, but the the X100T. It's so easy to get those confused. That new shutter, so fast. How does it work? It's electronic. Basically turns the sensor on and off by powering it. That's my understanding. Can't use it with flash? I don't know. I guess up at those points, there probably is issues with flash sync. Most cameras have a maximum flash sync speed of 1/250th of a second, maybe sometimes 1/320th of a second. So we're talking about, what, a factor of 100? Yes. You can set high-speed sync. I'm not sure. I can do a little more research about that, Paul. Angela, I love Commander Strong, too. And Kevin Lake, the Spaceman Returns. Now, to be technical, he actually is from an Underwater Explorer deep sea set. Yes. He's not an astronaut, but he looks like it. So we can pretend.
All right.
We're on the moon. Roy wanted to know, what's the best, worst guest with a camera story we have? And I was thinking about this. We don't really have any that have been terrible. So he linked to an article I'll put in here about guest saves the wedding. The article's okay. As somebody commented, it's mostly a bunch of pictures of, like, this photographer is like, look how awesome I am because here's this picture, this picture. They're not all, well, you know.
Anyway.
They're fine. And it turned out that towards the end of the day, he wanted to, this photographer who was hired to shoot the wedding wanted to do a very specific type of picture and realized that to get what he wanted, he needed one more flash and he didn't have it with him. The guest said, who had been there with a really nice camera and been really courteous all day, said, here, you can borrow mine. And so then they allowed him to make that picture that he had in his mind.
Well,
he should have been more prepared.
I'm just going to say that is the exception.
Yes.
And not the rule.
Well, yes.
Usually, I mean, I don't have any, like, horror stories.
Yeah, neither of us do.
But I've had people, like, you know, with giant iPads or cameras, like, just get real in front of me as the bride's walking down. And I don't want to be all, like, arrogant about, like, oh, my pictures are way more important. But my pictures are the couple's pictures. And they've paid a lot of money for me to get these pictures. And what are you going to do with those, like, grainy iPad pictures? And it's really frustrating.
Let's put this out there. I know this isn't a completely new thing, and I think some people have heard it, but the unplugged ceremony. This happened a couple times this year, last year. It's where right at the beginning of the ceremony, the officiant says, you know, the couple's got great photographers here. We smile so nice when they say that.
I don't.
You're such a grump.
I'm humble.
Humble. Okay. Yeah, I go to the guy whose son I'm next to. He's talking about me. It's me, not her.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. And it basically says, everybody put your phones away for the ceremony. And because we've talked about this before, so we're going to be really brief, but say, I've seen mothers of the brides, you know, you try to take a picture and then they're trying to figure stuff out. You're not watching your daughter get married.
Or like this one wedding that we had last year. They were cutting the cake and the couple was being so adorable. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're being so cute. I bet their guests are enjoying it. But nope, they were like...
Oh yeah, I've never seen so many
frustrating.
So many tablets and people taking pictures with tablets.
I'm not trying to be arrogant. Just put your phone.
So we had that aunt at that one wedding who, with a little point and shoot, she didn't have all of her marbles. She was very sweet, but she wanted to take a lot of pictures, and we had to deal with her being in the way quite a few times. But you just deal with it as best you can. Don't be rude. But if it gets to the point where you need to say, you know, I need this spot, or you plant yourself where you need to be,
right,
and you say nicely, excuse me, I need to get this shot.
I'm really passive aggressive, so I probably won't say anything ever, but I don't know. Maybe the more I do it, the more I'll...
Videographers have been worse than guests.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them, so...
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Videographers.
Although we did have a guest a couple weddings ago that stood directly behind the couple during the, I believe, I'm not going to say religion because I'm not fully sure which one it was, but they were doing this, like, they were signing some document, and it was like a really important part of the ceremony, and the guest was just like behind them. They were like totally backlit, the light was terrible from where he was, but he was like behind them and taking pictures.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going on for too long.
Lacey also wants to talk about the iPhone 6 and iOS 8 release, camera/video thoughts. We did that.
I did want to say something about iOS 8,
Yep.
which I actually forgot to say while we were talking about the iPhone. So one thing that I was really excited about for iOS 8 was the, and I should say that I've installed the final version that's been released to developers, because I'm a nerd like that. But I've installed it because I thought that the built-in camera was going to have control of exposure control. For whatever reason, I thought that was going to happen, but actually it is the API that they have changed that will make it easier for app developers to have better control of the camera shutter and the camera settings. So it wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but maybe a good app will come out that will allow me to do that. And I know that there already are apps, but none that are good enough.
Okay. So what else to say? iOS 8 is supposed to simplify that whole kind of photo. A lot of people call Lacey, go read the nice comments on last week's podcast, because a lot of people tried to do their best to set us straight on how PhotoStream works. And I think there's some great comments there. And iOS 8 is supposed to simplify that process even more. Yeah. And I wouldn't mind an iPhone 6 Plus, but I want to buy off contract to keep my unlimited data, and I am not going to spend $750 to do that. I will continue to care. Oh, and I hear the new Moto X camera is supposed to be very good, but even that is $450, I think, off contract. And that's a lot. I don't have that money, so I can't justify. So, William Mertz is still talking about the macro video. Good, I'm glad I got you thinking and talking, but kind of bummed. He's kind of bummed. He basically wants to create some really nice macros like we got here from Thomas Strahan. I thought I went to his page. I thought I had his, oh yeah, I do. He has got some great photos, and he said, William said, I want to get pictures like this, basically, but I don't want to spend $1,000 for the 100L. And, well, if you read Thomas's, he uses the one method that I talked about but didn't show. He uses lens reversers with cheap vintage, actually he calls them vintage, older lenses. So, William, you should consider picking up the reversal rings. So you said that. You're thinking about extension tubes with a reversing ring with a 50mm f1 Pro Prime. Yes. I think that's what you should do. That allows you to get very close. It has a lot of the same downsides that the extension tubes do, but you could actually not get the 51.4 prime. You could get some other older lens that has, that's okay, that has aperture control on the lens itself and use that. So we can talk more about that. If you want to send me a follow-up message, I can point you in the direction of some more information. Frankie, we got 3 more questions. Frankie wants to know, is the 5D Mark II obsolete or still a good used buy?
It's a really good used buy. The 60 focusing system is not that much better than the 5D Mark II focusing system. It's marginally better, and the 5D Mark II is a really nice camera. So,
well, it depends.
I think it's still a really good used buy. If it's cheaper, if you can find it for cheaper, I would definitely do it.
Yeah, you got to be able to find it for fairly cheap. It's a tough call though, because the center point on the 6D really is pretty good.
Yeah,
Low
so
light
is
wise.
the 5D. The center point, it's
I've used
excellent.
both recently, and okay, all right. You're always frustrated with how slow the 5D Mark III,
The
Mark II focus.
Yeah, the outer focus points.
Okay, all right. But the 6D does give you better ergonomics. If you're going to do any kind of video work, 6D is much better, and Wi-Fi, GPS. So if those things don't matter to you, 5D Mark II.
Yeah, if you just want to
put those savings towards nice lenses, yeah, you still can give it a thumbs up.
All right.
Angie's recently upgraded to the 5D Mark III. Congratulations, Angie. I remember you posted that a little bit ago. Having some trouble getting sharp images. You're using the 50mm 1.8, shooting at apertures too, so you're not wide open. Back button focus, fast enough shutter speed, that's good. You're eliminating variables that could cause for blurry pictures. I think the next step is for you to do some testing on a tripod, on a target. Doesn't have to be an official target, but something you set up. See if, because 51.8 at a $100 lens, you know, the 5D Mark III is going to stress test that lens. And see if you're getting any back focusing or front focusing, and you can correct that with the microfocus adjustments in the 5D Mark III.
Do you have any videos on microfocus adjustments?
I do, about the 70D, but it's exactly the same.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
My guess is either back or front focusing, so you have to, I mean, this is for just about every lens. There's slight variations between each lens that is produced. So depending on which camera you know, the camera paired with the given lens, you'll have different variations. Or it'll front focus or back focus slightly. The other thing you might be seeing is that the resolution and the actual quality of the 5D Mark III is much greater than whatever it is you were probably shooting with. So you might just have to get used to the fact that like that lens on that camera is not going to be amazing. I mean, you are going to be able to tell the difference in glass at, you know, that kind of resolution.
Yep. Sorry, and I think, Angie, you were coming from a crop sensor. Your depth of field is going to be shallower at those same apertures that you're using on a crop sensor. So again, focus becomes even more critical.
But try the microfocus adjustment first. I believe, you know, he uses a spider cowl. You can create other sort of like makeshift things online. There's tutorials online on how to do it sort of manually.
Shooting like this burlap here is nice. I shoot this at an angle and have a target here, and then I can clearly see where it's in focus on the burlap, the sharper piece. So things like that work well.
Yep.
Patterns.
In our last question from Phil, would a Canon 70D be a good choice to start off shooting weddings? And also, is there any other equipment that is a must-have to start off with? Yes, I think that a Canon 70D would be a good choice to start off. I started with a 70. The 70D is, you know, has a nicer sensor than the old 70, and it's a nice enough camera. I think you will know, and you will, this is kind of what happened to me. Like, nobody said, oh, you should get a better camera. I just knew when it was time to upgrade to a better camera. So start off with what you have, or, you know, start off with something that you can afford and that's realistic for you. And then you will know, and once, you know, you start getting money from doing it, and you have some experience under your belt, you will know when it's time to upgrade. Yep. You know, I would say definitely have a flash, a speed light that you can put on top of your camera. You can bounce light back off of like a ceiling or a wall, because when you're in low light situations, you really need that, especially during a reception and in a church. Lastly, what is
prime lens?
A prime lens.
I mean, those three things: a decent camera, a flash, and a prime lens.
And probably an all-around lens, like a zoom lens, I think.
Well, yeah, sorry. In addition to, you know, a lens that covers a range, a prime lens. Because when the light levels drop, even with a flash, you're going to start to struggle in a prime lens. Basically, you want things that are going to allow you to get decent images in a variety of situations. Let's say the bride and groom walk outside in low light and you've got a flash with nothing to bounce it off of, well then a prime lens is going to help you. Or you're inside, the flash is going to help you, and a prime lens. So And we have a whole video where we talk a little bit about equipment. We also talk about renting equipment.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That might be a good option for you if you're starting out, just to kind of figure out what you like. You might be able to get a little bit of a higher end lens for less than the price. You can build it into your cost also. So you give them more value. And the most important thing is just be really upfront with them about your experience, about the gear that you have, not in a way that makes you seem questionable or, amateur-ish, but just, be really upfront of what they're gonna expect. Setting the expectation from the beginning is important.
Well, you should have a gallery that does that.
Right.
And the last thing I want to say is I think it is irresponsible to show up to a wedding without a backup.
Yes, that is more important than anything else, actually. We should have started with that. So more important than a prime, and probably equally as important as a flash. And
well, you need all
a zoom
those.
lens.
I know.
So
there's a lot of different. Well, there's certainly high quality, high power wedding photographers that do natural light only, but that's where setting the expectations comes in. If you have a bunch of well lit pictures in your gallery and you show up without a flash, and so you produce these very grainy, low light, artsy images. Sometimes they look wonderful. Then your bride is probably, or your couple is probably not going to be so happy.
Right.
Okay.
And my mic.
Yeah. Well, let's end right there with your mic falling off. You have an assignment. Natural framing. Link to that down below. All the show notes down below, everything we talked about. If you've got any questions, if you've got answers, UPS versus FedEx. What was the very first one? I don't remember. I hope you do. And thank you for watching. Here are our Flickr pics of the week. We just like these pictures. That's why they're there. We picked them. I hope I let you know. I heard from Rose just a week or two ago. She never knew that way back on episode 10, I picked her ladybug picture. So sorry about that, Rose. I usually try to let you all know that your picture is there. Sometimes I forget. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.
Have you figured out a title?
A pile of announcements.
No.
New gear.
No.
What should the show title be?
It has to be
I don't
catchy.
know. It has to be catchy.
Ugh, don't do this for the bloopers.
What else we got? Portraits on the surface of the sun.
No. How about something about the 7D Mark II?
How about Sporty Sigma versus Posh Sigma?
No.
Rumour Roundup?
Yeah, that sounds good.